Hello everybody! Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Anime. And as you can notice, we're in a bit of a different scenery for today's episode. I think it was around the summer of last year when Dragon Ball Super ended that I decided to do a big video where I discuss all the anime that I watched from the winter season or the spring season, somewhere around that area, and combine it with the end of Dragon Ball Super and how I felt about that. And I figured since it's been a bit since I've done something like that, I'm going to be making a video discussing my thoughts on the winter 2019 anime. Although I should clarify a few things before I get into this. First of all, I have not watched every anime from this year, so I'm not going to be discussing everything. The way I'm going to make it, I'm going to have the screen up here, which is actually my anime list. I might link this down in the description. And I'm basically going to be giving my thoughts on the anime that I am watching from this year. And since I'm logged into my account, you can see how many episodes of each that I've watched at this point. And from what I remember, I believe that I counted and there's at least 10 plus anime that I might have to talk about. I can't remember exactly. So this will either be the first of 2 videos or just one extra long video. So just as a fair warning, I don't know how it's going to shape up. I'm going to make that decision after I get this recorded, and if I need to chop things and make it 2 parts, then I will. But I don't think there's anything that I need to discuss as far as leading into the discussion. I guess the only thing that I might forget to remember, if there's anything that I don't bring up, then I can just post it in post-editing. But the first thing that I do want to bring up, because I did look through this list and I noticed that it's not here, is Pokemon Sun and Moon. To be honest, I'm a bit surprised with how it's gone. I honestly can't remember. I know that I was going around discussing maybe I will, maybe I won't make a video back when the episodes where Team Rocket got the Z-Ring and Ash's trial with Nanu happened, and I never made videos about them. So I guess this might end up just being my video about it. It might not. I might still make a video later. But to give background on the episodes that I've watched, the last episode that I watched yesterday was the one where Charizard's Kiawe battled Tapu Lele and the whole thing with Tapu Fini. That's the last episode I watched. There's probably going to be at least 1 or 2 that come out afterwards. So I might be a bit off. To start, I really like with how they're handling Ash going to the other islands to do the grand trials. Like they did with Olivia, he just went over there for a couple of episodes and then went back to Mele Mele. He went over to, I think it's Ula Ula? Yeah, it's Ula Ula Island with Nanu and the grand trial there, and then he came back. Him and his classmates are going over to Pony for a couple of episodes, and they're probably going to go back to Mele Mele. I really like how they're handling that, because I know a lot of people were probably not that much of a fan of finding out, oh, Ash is going to school, so this series is going to suck. But I really like how they're handling it, and I really like how they're handling the Pokemon, I guess a way to say. Because I never expected Mallow's Bounce Sweet would evolve all the way. I did not expect Lana's Popplio to evolve at all. I did not expect Sophocles' Charjabug to evolve. And to be honest, after the episode where Lana's Popplio and Sophocles' Charjabug both evolved in the same episode, I saw that the next episode was going to be involving Kiawe's Charizard. And I'm thinking, no, they're not going to have Kiawe's Charizard Mega Evolve. But he just learned, Aerial Ace, and got the Fly Z move. Which, I guess that's fine too. But I think, like I mentioned in another video, the way they have Sun and Moon episodes, they're kind of not all focusing on the plot, but they're all unique enough that you're going to remember the episode. Like, the episode that Ash and company play baseball with Team Rocket. That's going to be one that I remember for a little bit. Oh, and also, I forgot to mention, Lily has, I believe, a Z-Ring and the Ice Z Crystal, I think? Ice or Fairy? I think it might be the Ice one. It's been a while since that episode came out. So, think we might be about due for an episode focusing on Lily, but I might just hold off on the rest of my thoughts for when Sun and Moon ends, and I can just make a video about how I feel about the series as a whole up until that point. But to start with the actual list here, first is the first one, Rising of the Shield Hero. I think it was in a live stream of VFist that I was watching. I mentioned about Rising of the Shield Hero, and I remember looking it up, and I was surprised to find that the first episode was 45 minutes long. And he said, yeah, it's a bit long, but it doesn't feel like you're forcing yourself to watch it. But overall, from what I have watched so far, I really like it. The opening song is absolutely incredible, and you're probably going to hear me say that about a lot of these. Although I do gotta be honest, I'm a little bit half and half on the whole thing with Naofumi being basically framed for a crime that he didn't even commit. If you watch the episode, you know what happens. I'm still a little bit unsure about that because in a way it seems like they're just being jerks, but it is kind of realistic in some senses, even if it is based off of another world. I think how he gets Raphtalia added to his party and the bond that they share is very sweet. And I'm curious about the other girl. I know in the opening it shows her transforming into a chicken or something like that, and I'm not sure about what that's about, but I'm excited because the way that they're handling Naofumi's party is each one of them has some sort of, I don't want to say tragic backstory, but that's more or less what it is. Naofumi gets ridiculed for a crime and becomes an outcast. Raphtalia, well, I'm not going to say the word because YouTube might block this video, but I guess a way to explain it is Rising of the Shield Hero is kind of unfair to Naofumi, but at the same time, it's realistic and kind of heartwarming at the same time. I'm not exactly sure how that makes sense, but I would say that if you're a fan of isekai anime, then watch this one. Because between Rising of the Shield Hero and Slime, we've been getting a lot of good isekai recently, especially with GGO last year. Alright, and next, just need to move this over to Mob Psycho 100 Season 2. I think it was either a stream or another video where I mentioned about how I just finished Mob Psycho Season 1 last year and I'm just starting Season 2. And it's very good. I'm not sure how they're taking the story yet. I know a lot of people are raving about Episode 5. I haven't watched it yet, but from the sounds of things, it's good. And just like Rising of the Shield Hero, the opening is very catchy. I think it's a toss-up between that one and the first opening. Both of them are super good. But I do like how with the early part of the season that I've watched so far is about Mob starting to make his own decisions about stuff. And then in the opening it says your life is your own. I really like that. But for all the manga readers, you guys probably know what's going to be happening in the later part of the season. And I don't, so I guess we'll both just have to wait and see what happens. Because even if you read it from the manga and know what's going to happen, the way the Bones might animate it might be vastly different. I don't know. But at the end of the day, Mob is probably the least that I can say about an anime because all I can really say is I watched the first season last year, I really liked it. I watched this season and I really liked it too. The show hasn't really done much so far. The most I've watched up to is Mob battling that legendary psychic or something like that. I haven't watched the 5th episode, probably concluding that yet. So that's all I gotta say about that. Oh boy. Promised Neverland. I know I did kind of already spoil a little bit of Shield Hero when I discussed it, but I think this one is much more important. If you do not want to be spoiled by anything involving Promised Neverland, I'll probably have a timestamp on the screen for you to click ahead to, because if you haven't watched this yet, I do not want anybody to be spoiled about this show. For starters, I never thought that I would actually enjoy a horror anime. I know that before I talked about how much I love Gakko Garashi, but at the same time, it's still kind of childlike because it's not really that much danger because it's still cute girls at the end of the day. With Promised Neverland, well, you can see it right there, one of the genres is shonen. From the very first episode, I knew something wasn't right with this show. The fact that every character has a number on their neck, and it was seeming a bit too happy-go-lucky, so I knew something was going to happen. And the instant that Norman and Emma decide to go and give Connie her stuffed rabbit after she already left, I knew something was going to happen. And actually, I might link this in the description. The Anime Man did kind of discuss the big shocker about the aliens and whatever at the end of this episode, and how it kind of worked better in the manga. I might link that if I remember. But I do admit that they probably could have done it a little bit better because it takes so long for Norman to walk to the back of the truck. But I didn't know what was going to happen. So for me, it still surprised me. And then with every subsequent episode, everybody just being on their best behavior, not trying to cause any problems, because everything's basically up in the air now, and I don't know how this story is going to end. They've talked about leaving with everybody. They talked about how it's impossible, so I don't know how they're going to do it. But I think out of anything else that I could say about this anime is this opening is straight fire. I cannot wait for the full version to get released because this opening is so good. It was done by the same people that did My Hero Academia's 4th opening, and when they released the full version of that, I wasn't as big of a fan of the full version as I was the TV version, but that makes me a little bit wary, but I feel like I might enjoy the song regardless. Just like Rising of the Shield Hero, Kaguya-sama wasn't going to be one that I initially watched for this season, but after my friend talking about it and Isla McTeer making a video about it, I decided to start watching it. And the fact that the show is basically two egos clashing with each other, trying to make the other one confess because in their minds and the show's title, love is war. And whoever confesses first loses. That is such a very unique opening sequence for how a show is. And just like everything else I discussed so far, this opening is very catchy. I wouldn't say it's one of my favorite openings, but that might change when I hear the full version of it. But it's a cool opening. I hum it along to myself at work sometimes, so I guess that means something. And the fact that the third wheel in this, Chika, is basically Nadeshiko all grown up, makes it even better. Although I do gotta say, it is kind of redundant after a couple of episodes where they explain the basic plot of everything, even though if you watch the first episode, you should already have the general idea of the plot. But the show's just a joy to watch because it's more or less just all mind games. So let me see, nothing else on this row. Yeah, I haven't really watched much from that row either. Oh boy, here we go. This is actually a funny story because the quintessential quintuplets was something that one of my subscribers, Ultra Lucario, mentioned for me to watch. And at first, I wasn't sure about it because you see one of the genre tags right there that says harem, and that's normally not something that I would watch. But to be fair, it's, as a lot of people on the internet say, one of the very few good harem comedies so far. But I'm not one to judge because I haven't watched any other ones. But for any of you that haven't watched the opening, or the show I should actually say, I had my mind on something else, I'll briefly explain what the show's about. Basically, Futaro, I believe it's Futaro, let me check, the circle's kind of in the way. Yeah, Futaro Usagi is basically a genius, and him and his family are going through rough times, he needs money, and this rich family with 5 quintessential quintuplets, funny enough, 5 girls that look all exactly alike, more or less, are offering him a lot of money to tutor each one of them. But there is a catch. He has to make sure they all graduate. But, you know, with a premise like that, you might think, okay, not sure how I feel about this. But there's no need to worry, because the 5 girls can score a 100 all together, meaning that each one has around 20 points, which that's not good. Of course, some have more, some have less. But I think the main thing that's drawing a lot of people in is all 5 of the girls have distinct personalities. And you could probably even see that from the picture right there. And of course, with a lot of anime, there's always a list of comments a mile long on any video involving them, where people are either team this or team that based off of which girl they want Usagi to end up with in the end. And the unique thing about it is episode 1 opens up with him about to be married, and you could argue that it's any 5 of the girls, because, like I said, they all look exactly alike. When you doll them up with makeup, it's hard to tell which one it is. So basically, the premise of it is a flashback, and I really like that. But at the end of the day, each one of the 5 girls has one defining trait that is basically them. Let me just go over a couple of them. They don't go over them here. Okay, so let's see. We got Genki Girl in orange hair, who is basically shouting half of her lines, which normally half and half on that. But I do like, honestly, she's probably the one that delivers more of the lines that I have to laugh at out of any of them. And I just can't help but bust out laughing when in the opening she's just shouting the main character's name when everybody else is just talking. Then we got, I guess from what I can tell, 2 tsundere sort of characters, I guess. I'm not really sure why they need 2, unless one of them is more than the other. I guess one of them he met in the first episode, and then the other one with the pink hair is more tsundere-ish. Then you got the purple one who's, I guess, a tomboy? I'm not really sure. And then Miku. I've watched enough videos to know that everybody likes Miku, I guess. Most everybody. But I do like that even though the characters more or less have a defining personality, they're more than that. Because the last episode that I watched was, I think it's Ichika? The girl in the purple hair, I think that's her name. They're trying to get all the girls together because they got separated to watch the fireworks. And she's hanging around with some shady man. And I'm honestly, not gonna lie, I want to know how that ends up. But before I give my thought on what my favorite girl from the show is, I just want to say that I hope that this doesn't end up with a thing where people just start bad-mouthing each other in comment sections of videos involving this, saying, no, your opinion is wrong on this, and a fight breaks out. I wouldn't think that would happen, but this is the internet. But with that being said, I think that my favorite at the moment is probably Miku, closely followed by orange hair girl. I think her name was Hotaru or Yotaru. I think it's Yotsuba. Wanted to make sure to correct myself so nobody else would. But I like Miku because she just reminds me of Hifumi from New Game. And Yotsuba, well, I more or less, with a few exceptions, like the overly energetic character in anime. Next anime that I'm talking about is My Roommate is a Cat. And along with a couple of other ones, this is one that a lot of people wanted me to discuss. And really, the premise of it isn't too crazy. Basically, leaving a couple of details out. Subaru is a novelist, and he basically meets a stray cat one day and decides to take it in, and they start living together, and that's the anime. But at the same time, it does sort of have essence of, what's it called? Tadakun Never Falls in Love. Because one of the premises is that Subaru's parents died while going into a car crash or on a plane. One of those two. It's more or less how it was in Tadakun, just leaving out a couple of specifics. But what I do like about My Roommate is a Cat is in the last few episodes that I've watched, Subaru is thinking back to when his parents were alive. And I think the one episode was him buying a collar for his cat. And then he's looking at the cat and he's thinking, it looks good on you because I bought it for you. And then he flashes back to when he got a shirt from his mother. And it's more or less the same thing. It looks good because I bought it for you. And I do like how it shows how he's changed from back when he was with his parents. And the killer of it is that when it shows his last interaction with his parents when they're about ready to go on a trip that they wanted him to go along with as well, but he didn't, they say something like, hey, one more thing we gotta tell you. And not gonna lie, I thought they were gonna just turn around and say, we love you, and just hit everybody in the feels. But instead, they turn around and say, hey, next time, why don't you come on a trip with us? And that was just so sad. Because since it's a flashback, you know how it ends up, and you know how sad that line is. But outside of all the sad stuff, the side cast is fine. What's his name? The guy that's behind him, like the second in command, I guess, that's more or less publishing his books. His character is kind of there. He goes crazy over cats. Not exactly sure if I like him or hate him. I wouldn't say hate, because hate's a strong word. But I'm kind of half and half on him. Same with his friend that just barges into his house sometimes, because that's just weird. I'm sure that there's always a friend that everybody has that's either like that or you might be that friend. But then Nana, the girl that runs the pet shop, or at least works at the pet shop, there's a story with that. And it actually ties into my most recent Q&A that I did, where somebody mentioned her in the comment, and I didn't know her name was Nana. I remember that I saw her in the first, or one of the first episodes, when he was getting cat food, I think it was. And then the more I was watching it, when the opening came on, I'm thinking, wait, girl with pink hair has a cat? Then in the episode she mentions, I have a cat too. It's just like yours, except it's female. Then I'm putting everything together and realize that's the girl. I honestly didn't think she was going to be a main member of the cast, but it seems like she is. But like I mentioned a couple of times before on this channel, I don't know what it is, but I like something about girls with pink hair in anime. Kind of makes me wonder about my life choices with quintessential quintuplets, but whatever. I think the biggest draw that people have to My Roommate is a Cat is if you have a pet yourself, then you would relate more to it. But even though I don't even have a pet, I still do enjoy the show. So, I guess that's saying something. This one's not going to take long for me to discuss. Watashi ni Tenshi ga Mariorta. I don't remember how that translates. I think it's like Wataten, an angel flew to my doorstep or something. I don't know. Basically, the premise of it is there's a college girl, she has a younger sister, and she has classmates. And the college student basically falls in love with one of her friends. And basically it turns into, she makes cosplay, has the little girls dress up in it, takes pictures of them, and offers them sweets in return. I watched the first episode of it. I was about half and half on it. But then I figured, okay, I'll give it one more episode. But the more I watched the second episode, the more I thought, no, I don't like this. It's too creepy. And so, that was the end of that. Not saying that anybody that watches this is creepy, it's just not for me personally. Which is a shame, because it's from the same studio that made New Game.